Good day, everyone. Today I am going to talk about the mind map of Chapter 4 Perception. So, this will be the outline of what I am going to talk about. Now, let us define what is perception. Perception is how we assemble sensations into meaningful patterns. As we perceive events, the brain actively selects, organizes, and integrates sensory information to construct a picture or model of the world. Perceptions are based on simultaneous bottom-up and top-down processing. Complete percepts are assembled out of small sensory features in bottom-up fashion, guided by pre-existing knowledge applied top-down to help organize features into a meaningful whole. When your attention is intensely focused on one object, you are blind to another, even though it is in front of your eyes. This phenomenon is called inattentional blindness, which suggests that there can be no perception without attention. When messages reach the brain, the body has a sort of what is it reaction, known as orientation response. An orientation response prepares us to receive information from a stimulus. The pupil enlarges, brainwave patterns shift, breathing stops briefly, blood flow to the head increases, and we turn toward the stimulus. Have you ever seen someone stop to take a second look? If so, you have observed an orientation response. Perceptual organization, the process by which elements of visual and other sensory information are structured into a coherent whole. So, how are sensations organized into perceptions? The Gestalt psychologists propose that the simplest organization is constructed by grouping some sensations into an object or figure that stands out on a planar background. The Gestalt principles of organization bring order to our perceptions. The following Gestalt principles also help organize sensations. Nearness, stimuli that are near each other tend to be grouped together. Similarity, stimuli that are similar in size, shape, color, or form tend to be grouped together. Continuation or continuity, perceptions tend toward simplicity and continuity. Closure, tendency to complete a figure so that it has a consistent overall form. Continuity, nearness in time and space, perception that one thing has caused another. Common region, stimuli that are found within a common area tend to be seen as a group. Perceptual constancies. Perceptual constancies allows us to find regularity in the constantly changing energy patterns reaching our senses. In vision, the image projected on the retina is constantly changing, but the external world appears stable and undistorted because of size, shape, and brightness constancy. Size constancy is the perceived size of an object that remains the same even though the size of its image on the retina changes. An example of size constancy is holding your left hand a few inches in front of your nose and your right hand at arm's length. Your right hand did not suddenly shrink because you have seen it many times at various distance. In shape constancy, the shape of an object remains stable even though the shape of its retinal image changes. Brightness constancy refers to the fact that the brightness of objects appears to stay the same as lighting condition change. To summarize, the energy patterns reaching our senses are constantly changing. Even when they come from the same object, size, shape, and brightness constancy rescues us from a confusing world in which objects would seem to shrink and grow, change shape as if made of rubber, and light up or fade like neon lamps. Depth perception. Depth perception is the ability to see three-dimensional space and to accurately judge distances. Without depth perception, another form of top-down processing, would be unable to drive a car or ride a bicycle, play catch, shoot baskets, thread a needle, or simply navigate around a room. We learn to construct our perception of three-dimensional space by using a variety of depth cues. Depth cues are features of the environment and messages from the body that supply information about distance in space. Some cues require two eyes, binocular depth cues, whereas others will work with just one eye, monocular depth cues. Binocular depth cues. Binocular depth cues are the images taken in by both eyes to give depth perception. Binocular cues create a three-dimensional image of the world one views. There are two types of binocular depth cues, convergence and retinal disparity. Convergence uses both eyes to focus on one object, while retinal disparity is based on the fact that the eyes are about 2 0.5 inches apart. Because of this, each eye receives a slightly different view of the world. The other depth cue that work with just one eye is called monocular depth cues. As its name implies, monocular depth cues can be used to construct a three-dimensional perception with information received from just one eye. Monocular depth cues also underline depth perceptions. They are linear perspective, relative size, height in the picture plane, light and shadow, overlap, texture gradients, aerial haze, and motion parallax. Linear perspective is based on apparent convergence of parallel lines in an environment. Overlap is when an object partially blocks another. Texture gradients, texture changes can contribute to depth perception. Coarse texture implies closeness, fine texture implies distance. Relative motion or motion parallax is when nearby objects move a lot as your head moves. Distant objects move slightly. Motion perception. Many animals, including human beings, have very sophisticated perceptual skills that allow them to coordinate their own motion with the motion of moving objects in order to create a collision with that object. We also experience motion when objects near each other change their appearance. The beta effect refers to the perception of motion that occurs when different images are presented next to each other in succession. The beta effect is used in movies to create the experience of motion, while a related effect is the pi phenomenon, in which we perceive a sensation of motion caused by the appearance and disappearance of objects that are near each other. The phi phenomenon looks like a moving zone or cloud of background color surrounding the flashing objects. Next is illusions. Although our perception is very accurate, it is not perfect. Illusions occur when the perceptual processes that normally help us correctly perceive the world around us are fooled by a particular situation, so that we see something that does not exist or that is incorrect. A well-known illusion is the Mueller-Lyer illusion, as seen in this attached photo, in which the line segment in the top arrow looks longer to us than the one on the bottom, even though they are both actually the same length. Extrasensory perception. About half of the general public believes in the existence of extrasensory perception or ESP, which is the ability to perceive events in ways that cannot be explained by known sensory capacities. This includes clairvoyance, telepathy, precognition, psychokinesis, Zener cards, and run of luck. And that is it for today's video. Thank you for listening.